They're going to look at New York City and go, oh, the Democratic Party is so far left. I actually saw one guy who's fairly respected have the nerve to say, oh, well, this just proves that if you're in the Democratic Party, you have to be crazy to win. I'm thinking, wait, this from Trump's MAGA Republican Party? But, you know, they're going to focus on New York City, and they're going to ignore the admiral winning in South Carolina, a woman who's committed her entire life to protecting and defending the United States of America. They're also going to ignore a woman just up the road that's going to be running against Mike Lawler, who was a Bronze Star was awarded the Bronze Star 3 times. She was Special Ops, one of the first women to ever lead Special Ops units. She toured Afghanistan and Iraq, had 6 tours there. A bona fide war hero. And this is, I got to say, this is what the Democrats are proving themselves really to be really pragmatic. If you look at what they did last night, New York City, they go far, far left. That'll work for New York City. In places like Lawler's district, which is a swing district, South Carolina 1 swing district, finding these military heroes, much like they did with the New Jersey race, Mikey Sherrill, and in Virginia, Spamberger, while they were electing a socialist in New York City, Mamdani. It worked then. We'll see if it works this fall.
Yeah, these are congressional races. These are not statewide races. So it's not terribly surprising that someone to the far left won the Upper West Side or won areas of Brooklyn. It is impressive that Mayor Mamdani, in his short term in office, was able to sort of bless these candidates, and some of them winning overwhelmingly and unseating incumbents. Dan Goldman losing by 30 points in his district. The incumbent and Congressman Espaillat, who is a major figure in congressional Hispanic caucus, the leader of that caucus as well, he was unseated in a closer race there. So, yes, as the New York Times says this morning, Mamdani showed he can be a kingmaker. But to make this a national story and not look at what you just discussed, which is the race up in Westchester County, where Mike Lawler is going to have a tough fight because a lot of the support he's shown for Donald Trump, and in South Carolina and other places where it turns out, Jonathan Lemire, in specific congressional districts, Democrats pick candidates that they think can win. In this case, in New York City, some of those were socialists.
Yeah, I mean, Democrats feel good in recent cycles since the 24 disaster about finding the right candidates for the right races. I was talking to some Democrats yesterday who reminded us, as we look towards this November, the success that Democrats had running moderates for the governor's races in New Jersey and Virginia. They won both. But yet, and we're seeing the same there in South Carolina. They feel very bullish about a lot of races coming up this fall. But yes, it's not a one-size-fits-all solution. And in New York City, certainly that's the story here, is Zohran Mamdani, you know, in his early days in office, having significant coattails, being a kingmaker and picking off. You're choosing, Joe, to use his political capital to pick off some incumbents, to put in some of his sort of more of like-minded fellow travelers, more to the left than others. I mean, Dan Goldman has a record that a lot of Democrats pretty happy with the exception of some of the support for Israel in the months after the war. And also, there's also here in New York, there's sort of the Latino political machine also showing its age. I think that's part of it as well. That's a subplot to what happened here. But no doubt, what worked in New York City, Democrats aren't trying to replicate it other places. It's not one size fits all.
Yeah, you know, a lot of things going on here. And Jonathan, we're going to have you put on your daily news hat here. I personally thought when Mamdani came out and endorsed all these people, I thought too soon. Because even if you win in those cases, and he did, and he should be saluted, it's extraordinary political machine there. And he's going to build a lot of power as a kingmaker in New York City. A lot of scar tissue when you're mayor of New York City with a lot of people, even if you win those races. But he's proven himself to be a brilliant political operator. I'm sure he'll sort through that. I just you know, hearing a lot of people talking about the anti-Semitism in New York City, and last night proved the anti-Semitism in New York City, and this is Mamdani's fault, this is so-and-so's fault, this left. No, it's not. It's really not. If you want to blame anybody for what happened last night. My opinion, if you want to blame anybody, Jonathan, I think you have to blame Benjamin Netanyahu. 4 years of maximalist aims, 4 years of ahistoric goals in the Middle East that anybody from Dr. Brzezinski to even me could have told anybody over the past 20 years. It's not going to work. And I've said it all along. There's always blowback in the Middle East. The idea that you're going to be able to brutalize children and women in Gaza with bombing that looks indiscriminate on TV day in and day out for years, that you're going to be able to level half of Lebanon, that you're going to be able to continue to allow thugs to run wild in the West Bank, and brutalizing Palestinians, brutalizing Christians in Bethlehem, brutalizing Christians across that area, along with Palestinian Muslims, especially Palestinian Muslims, blowing up Catholic churches in Gaza. Of course, I'm saying things that would relate to some of these people who are so shocked that Israel is in such low standing in America right now. Forgive me for a quick digression, but I was always instinctively pro-Israeli and anti-Palestinian growing up. You know why? Because when I was a young child, one of my first memories was the '72 Munich Olympics, when Palestinian terrorists killed Israelis. And it was shocking. And we saw time and time again terror attacks throughout the 70s. That shaped an entire generation's views on that conflict. Well, what's shaping the views now? Images out of Gaza. Images out of the West Bank. Images out of Lebanon. A famine out of Gaza. And an American president who tells Netanyahu, go. You're unrestrained until his war in Iran goes horribly wrong. So you can blame all of this on Benjamin Netanyahu. And yes, if you go back to the horrors of October 7th, blame the funding for that on Benjamin Netanyahu as well, because he forced the Qataris to continue funding Hamas weeks before the October 7th attack. So again, everybody's going to want to blame somebody else for this. The guy on the left is the reason why Israel's standing, not only in New York City, but across America, is lower than it has been since 1948. And you're starting to see that in elections, not only on the far left, but on the far right.
Yeah, what you just said there about Netanyahu being the central figure is precisely what I was texting with some New York Democratic operatives last night. First of all, the people on the right like to blame Mamdani. They like to say there's a culture of anti-Semitism here, and people can have their own opinions. That's not what this was about. Brad Lander, of course, Jewish himself. This is about the support for Israel and the conduct of that war. Dan Goldman, this shows you how toxic it is. Dan Goldman, as of late 2024, was also running away from it. So it's denounced it, said this has gone too far, tried to move away from his position that had initially been supportive. But that shows you just how toxic Bibi and Netanyahu and his conduct of the war has been, where he couldn't overcome that. And Lander, who had been far more critical, was able to win. So that is a big piece of the story here in New York. And yeah, and then the Mamdani coattails is the other element here. There's no question that the Netanyahu stuff, Joe and Mika, loomed large in that race, perhaps more than any other factor, and we'll see how that plays out going forward, because as a final thought, I had conversations last night with some Democrats about other races coming up this fall and in 2028, and there's no doubt that the Netanyahu stuff looms large. As long as he's in power. Once he's out, that could change things, but the conduct of that war in Gaza is going to be a fundamental issue for Democrats for years to come.